Vol.1 Vibin is out now. You can stream it wherever. This is your second full-length project. The first one was, 2021?
So, if I'm being honest, I won't even count that one, bro.
No, it's on your discography.
Wait, let me explain why.
Okay.
Let me explain why before the alcohol gets to you, okay?
Don't do that. It's zero. What are you talking about? It's a Corona Zero. No alcohol, just a taste.
Sugar-free. So, the first one, I guess we'll call it a project. It was originally supposed to be just an EP, and it was What I Said is what it was called, right? It was just a bunch of songs I compiled. There was no, what's the word I want to use? There was like no reasoning behind it. It was just like, hey, I got a bunch of songs. Let me throw them out. I was eager at that time. I didn't really have no concept behind it. There was nothing. It was just like, yeah, here we go. Have it. So with this one, I did it a lot different. With this one, I did 3 skits. Well, 4 because one's in a song itself, the very beginning. But I just wanted to show the growth. A lot of people, when they listen to albums, you don't listen to it front to back, right? Short attention span and so forth, So what I did with this one is why I called it Vibin, because when you vibing, it's for a short time. Every song, minute and a half, 2 minutes, 2.5 longest. That's what it created, was what I think is replay value, because it leaves you wanting more. Like, oh, I was liking that. I want to hear more of it. So that's the way I did it. I did it for that reason. Had some features. Shout out to my boy, JC and Zay Baby, but we call him Ness on streaming platforms. But it was just more like I needed to show the growth. You have the first couple songs shows a fuckboy era. You go through this scenario where you're just doing what fuckboys do, and then the skit hits, and I was like, all right, you're in your lover boy area now. You want to show that. You got, I guess, a sensitive side, if that makes sense. And then the last skit goes into like, oh, I'm ready to get my money. I was bullshitting all my early 20s, even mid 20s, and then it just hit me one day like, I don't want to do this forever. Like, this is boring. There's no money to be made. It's just not, it's not my place no more. It's not something I want to do. I don't want to go to the bar, see the same people doing the same thing, no goals, no ambitions, waking up hurting. So it just kind of, you could do it front to back to front, and it'll still have that same concept. But I feel like once you listen to it fully, first time all through, then after that, it's just like you can listen to it however, But I created it to show the growth, which is why I call this one my first official album versus the last one. The last one, it was just songs.
Yeah.
This one, there was no concept behind it. But this one, I worked on it, and I went back, man, like tweak this, tweak that. No, I got to add this, I got to add that. Because originally it was just going to be an EP. Excuse me. But, I decided, I was like, no, I kept getting more and more ideas, more concepts, more excited. Like, oh, I'm going to build something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started. The chose up on the very first song on it was just like, oh, this will be a single. This will be hard. And then I listened to the voicemail that I had on it, and I was like, okay. During this era, I was just out getting money, spending money, being a fuckboy. And then I was like, all right. And then I have the lover boy era, when I fell in love, all that stuff, And then now
she hurt your heart, bro.
That was then.
That was 2021.
That was then.
That was you. Not to make these awkward.
She's aware.
You were heartbroken. And I called that shit out in that video too. I said, who broke this man's heart?
I wouldn't say heartbroken. I think I was angry, bro. I wouldn't say heartbroken because I was.
Yeah.
Very next weekend, I was out kicking it, doing whatever. I wasn't in a depressed mode.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about music, man, is that I like to be versatile. I like to try different things. I've tried, the R&B stuff. I've tried, the hood rap stuff. I've tried, storytelling, and then music videos. I like to direct. I like to do stuff like that. So I like to be able to do just different things, not only with music, but like, doing the photography, the videography, and then the network that comes with it. There's some people that I've worked with that I worked with one time, and they just developed a friendship after that.
Yeah.
Shout out to my boy in Late Vision, KJ. I love KJ.
Yeah.
We started out with just business, and man, if I ever get married, you got to be in the lineup, So it's just a matter of, I always look at like music brings people together if you're not looking at that person like their competition.
Mm-hmm.
But other people might see it different than that. But
when I listen to an album, I take a step back and I'm like, what does this make me feel, right? Yeah. And when I put on your project today, I was like, I need to put this in the car because it says Vibin. I'm feeling like this is the direction he wants to take me on. By the time I got to the studio, I was like, damn, this is like I left the house with white Air Forces. I got to the studio wearing black Air Forces. That's how I felt.
Hey, but you had that feeling. Like I said, there's that concept behind it. You know, you start off one way and then you went this way, but it's like the twists and turns in between, you know, when you're like, oh yeah, I'm bumping it. I'm feeling myself. And then it's like, all right, I'm ready to get this money. Let's do something, you know.
Why Vol.1? Is this going to be a series?
I want it to be. Don't get me wrong. I want it to be. Originally, like I said, it was going to be an EP, which is why I had the Vol.1. But then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? A lot of my past songs, you know, they've been just vibing. You know, I've always made catchy hooks, you know, and I've thrown some really solid artists on my stuff, whether my solo stuff or featured stuff. You know, it's just more of like just vibing, you know, you just vibing out. Like I have, bro, if I'm being honest, I probably have a vault of like 50 songs fully done and then about another like 300 that are unfinished.
Damn.
So I have a catalog.
Yeah.
It's just more of, I'm very particular. You know, I don't like to drop something I don't feel I gave them 100% on. You know, if I feel like, oh, I could have mixed this better, or hey, I could have hit that note better, or I could have said better bars, whatever the case is, bro, like I just want to make sure I gave my 100% before I dropped that.
You on this project, it's what about 9 songs, and then you add the skits?
8 songs, 3 skits.
Okay.
So
and you have a lot that you've dwindled it down to just those songs. How does that happen? How does that session happen when you're like, this song needs to go on this project? Nah, this one won't fit. Because you got a lot. It sounds like you got a lot to choose from, but it also sounds like you were calculated with this project specifically.
I think what it was is that some of the newer stuff I've made has been more rap. Like it's been rap, and I wanted to show people that I'm versatile. Like I can do more than just rap. I can do some R&B stuff. I know some people don't like it, the auto-tune stuff. I can do that. You know, I don't like to use a lot of auto-tune, but obviously I'm not no high-class singer. Otherwise, I'd be on The Voice. I wouldn't be in Utah. Yeah. But, you know, I got to do what I got to do. And then, you know, there's just a variety of, man, that I have an idea, and then I'll go one way with it, and then it's like, oh, this will sound better. And I'll go this way with it, and then it's like, no. And then you have all these different branches, and it's like, all right, I have different paths. Which one am I take? You know, and it starts out with one song, I will make another one, and then I'll make another one. It's like, oh, these can click together. And that's kind of how it came to be. Like I said, originally it was an EP, you know, 4 songs, 5 songs. And then I was like, no, I got the voicemails, let's add skits, you know. So I started coming up with like a script, you know, on like, all right, this is how I want it to go, improvise it, whatever. And so I had, you know, a couple friends, you know, shout out to my boy Monty, my homegirl Sierra, you know, my cousin Zay, you know, they all got involved. They all helped me out. You know, they did me a solid, right? So it's just more of me trying to articulate, you know, where I want to be able to pick what I feel like is best. And I just feel like when you vibing, and that's like I said, vibing, you know, you're not listening to a 4 or 5 minute song, you know, unless it's just like one of them EDM songs.
Unless it's good.
Yeah.
I think people will sit with longer projects if it's good.
Absolutely. Jonah Lucas dropped a project today. I don't know if you heard that. It is amazing.
K the Dog dropped one. It's 22 songs. I sat with it. Push and the Clips, they dropped a long project. I sat with it, right? Like, if it's good, the people will stay. It's just like a meal, right? Mm-hmm. If a meal is good, we're going to break bread. We're going to eat all night.
Oh, yeah.
But the food ain't good, you ain't going to eat that shit.
So with that being said, bro, I think another thing with that is, you know, it's also going to depend on you as a person, because some people listen to songs for the beats. Mm-hmm. You know, if they don't have a good beat, you could have the hardest bars, but if your beat selection's ass, I don't want to listen to it. Yeah. I don't want to sit there and be like, oh, that was hard, but I can't bob my head to it, you know? And that might be just me being raised on West Coast music. You know, don't get me wrong. I love my East Coast, you know, my East Coast artists and stuff like that. Like, I love Joey Badass. That dude's just a lyrical genius, especially with all the beef he's been doing right now. But, you know, I think him, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I'm not a fan of Jay-Z.
You have your opinion. That's fine.
The way you swear, bro.
Jay-Z's he's my number one.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that. I don't hate the dude. I just don't like the beat selection. He's not my...
You're crazy. But it's okay. Wait. It could be a generational thing too. Let
me word it this way. I'm not a fan of him, but he does have some hits. Okay.
Are you a top 40 hit guy? Because you were saying like the beat, the head nod. Are you a top 40 guy? Or are you more like what was your introduction to music? Not just hip hop, but what's your introduction to music?
Good question, man. It was a lot of 80s pop, you know, New Shoes, you know, even like the Whispers, even 70s, you know, like my dad and my mom put me on a lot of like old school stuff. But then I started hearing those samples in some of the 90s, so I love the 90s music. The 90s R&B is undefeated. I don't care what anybody's got to say. My opinion, but I don't care what anybody's got to say.
I'm not mad at that.
But I feel like when you hit the 2000s, a lot of stuff started being recycled a lot more, right? And there's nothing wrong with that if you can make it pop.
Yeah.
But I think that's where I was just raised on hardcore West Coast only for the longest time. And then I think about 2008, 2009 is when I was like, I got to check out more of the East Coast. You know, I got to see what's over there. Because I was always just fixated, like, nah, it's just West Coast, West Coast, West Coast. And a lot of my style is West Coast. But at the same time, I also take like a lot of like notes when I'm like, you know, in the studio and I'm just vibing. I'll listen to some, you know, certain beats that either my cousin Gino will send me or other, you know, producers that I've worked with. You know, it's just more of, I'm just trying to figure out, I don't want to sound the same in every song. I want to be able to, you know, what it can be a little tweak, man. It could be as, you know, as far as like, oh, I said a couple better bars than I did on this song. Or this song just had, you know, I was able to switch up the beat a little bit to kind of make it sound different. There's just so many different things, and I think that's why I love music is that I might not like an artist per se, but that doesn't mean that I won't like a specific song that they have, you know? So I said I wouldn't put Jay-Z in my top 5. He's your top 1, you know? But, you know, I grew up on Tupac, NWA, you know, Ice Cube. I love Ice Cube. I love Ice Cube's older stuff. His newer stuff I'm not a fan of. You know, Snoop Dogg back in the day. You know, Dre's a producer. I've watched YouTube videos on him, man, and he's just, I'm not even a producer, but just watching him get to work like that is crazy, you know. My first, I guess, album I owned or that was bought for me for my birthday was Eminem's The Slim Shady Show. So,
wow.
That was my very first album that I owned. And then what got me into music, well, we're getting off track, but what got me into music, and this is going to be weird to say, is Hobson.
Now, I know you know that's not all. Check out the full episode right now on the Patreon, patreon.com/DreRawka, DreRawka. Check it out before everybody else.